justice and women. Yeah. Uh, and then we have moderators. The moderators, we have two moderators for today's session. Mrs. Shruti Banerjee from Bharathidasan University, Department of Women's Studies. She's an MPhil Gender Studies Research Scholar. She will introduce the speakers, and she will introduce the speakers. She will tell the speakers' profile also. Meanwhile, and we have another moderator, Professor Dr. N. Manimegalai, Director and Head of Department of Human Studies, Bharathidasan University. So I welcome both of you, ma'am. So over to Mrs. Shruti Banerjee to introduce the speakers as well as tell the speaker's profile. Welcome, Ms. Shruti. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Today, I welcome all my esteemed faculties behalf of Bharathidasan University, Department of Women's Studies, and for the fourth panel on the topic of administration of justice and women. And today we have Maja Daruwala is presently the chief editor of Indian Justice Report. It ranks each Indian state's police prisoners, judiciary and legal aid capacities and whether they are adequate to deliver justice to all. A barrister from Lincoln's Inn has been working to advocate for rights and social justice for over 40 years. For 20 years, she was the director of Commonwealth Human Rights Invitation, an international NGO mandated to ensure the practical realization of human rights across the Commonwealth. Presently, she is senior advisor there and at Tata Trust. For 2 years, she was also special monitor for police and prisoners at the NHRC. In addition, she is actively engaged in numerous human rights initiatives and concentrates on issues relating to civil liberties, including the police reform, prison reform, right to information, discrimination, women's rights, freedom of expression, and human rights advocacy capacity building. Maja has lived and worked in England, Singapore, and Sri Lanka. Back in India, she has practiced for a short while in the Supreme Court, but then left to work full-time at the Ford Foundation as a program officer for South Asia. Maja's interest lie particularly in the area of systematic reforms. She has focused her energies on issues of accountability and participation, which she believes are essential underpinnings for good governance and realization of human rights. Maja is a winner of Nani Palkiwala Prize for Civil Liberties and sits on several charitable boards, including the Population Foundation of India, the Media Foundation, and Center for Social Justice. Maja believes the only way to be optimistic about the future is to invent it. Thank you so much for all my participants, my esteemed faculties, Dr. N. Manimegalai, Dr. N. Murugeshwari, Dr. Suba, and all other staffs of Bharathidasan University, all research scholars, and all the staffs and representatives from HRF Foundation. And I welcome you all with a hearty good afternoon to start this campaign on the fourth very day. And now I hand over to my first speaker, Maja Daruwala. To you.
Thank you, Ms. Banerjee. Thank you very much for the introduction. I'm afraid it was too long. And as I told you before we started, everybody lies on their CVs. So don't take too much of it into belief. But thank you for the opportunity to take part in this. I'm so happy to do it because I often come across arguments about discussions about women's participation, women's rights, women's inclusion. And very often I find that younger people are quite, though they're strong about women's rights, are often tongue-tied in their arguments. So I thought I would put some forward today. I particularly want to talk about, excuse me for a minute. Sorry. I particularly want to talk about women in the justice system. And as you mentioned, I am the chief editor for the moment of the India Justice Report. We published it in December of 2019. That seems so long ago now with this pandemic. Everything in 2019 seems like a normal dream. So several of us came together, Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative, the Center for Social Justice, Priyas, TIS, Daksh, Vidhi, Common Cause. We all came together to develop under the Tata Trust, the first ever India Justice Report. And the next one will be out in January 2021. So it's a periodic thing. Now, what does it do? It ranks, for the first time in India, it ranks each state, most of the states in India. 4 states we did not rank because they were conflict states, but all the rest of the states, we rank them in relation to, do they have the capacity to deliver justice for all? So we look at budgets, infrastructure, human resources, diversity, workload of 4 pillars of the justice system: judiciary, police, prisons, and legal aid. And we ask is it good enough? Have they got enough capacity? Does the state give them enough money, manpower, and resources of every kind to allow them to give us a justice service like a justice service should be? In my view, the justice service that is delivered to people in India should be equal to having a school in your taluka or in your district, or having in a city a fire engine or a hospital. That's how ordinary a justice system should be. Today, we make it too extraordinary. So, what has all this to do with women's rights? Well, part of what women, of course, are users of the justice system. But part of our work was to look at diversity. Now, as you know, in India, there are many kinds of diversity. People are living in different centuries. People are living poor and rich. Caste diversity, language, class, religion, region, disability, and gender all demonstrate that there is a huge amount of diversity in the country. Now, if you're going to create a justice system, the justice system itself must demonstrate that it is diverse, that it is diverse enough to show both equity and equality within itself. So we try to look at all the data for it, and there is a lot of data on caste, but only it's patchy. You can't compare it across all of the pillars or all of the states because it's all collected in different ways. But what was more trackable was the situation of women in the justice system. So that has to do with also empowering women, employing women. What is the kind of response that women get from the justice system? So looking at diversity to see how the justice system accommodates women as well as responds to women would be the reason why we looked at diversity and thought that it is such an important and valuable factor and facet in the delivery of justice. So what did we find? Now I must put a caveat beforehand, and that is that numbers will tell you a story, but only half the story. Number cannot tell you about culture, attitudes, behavior, but certainly it can tell you whether the system that you are looking at has got the preconditions necessary to deliver. It's really a very good example to look at COVID. If you've got those comorbidities, if you are already half a sick person, then the COVID is going to affect you much more. So similarly, in the justice system, if you're already limping along, you really are going to be much worse off after a disaster like COVID. And it is going to affect every part of your justice system, including how many women there are, how much diversity there is, how much representation there is. So what did we find in these numbers? Let's look at the judges. We find that there are more women in the subordinate courts. On average, there is about 30%. Doesn't mean that all the states have got the same number, but if you look at the national average, at the subordinate courts, you have about 30% women judges. By the time you get to the High Court, it's 11%, nearly 12%. Even the 30% is bolstered by the fact that Goa, in its subordinate courts, have got 72%. So that increases Goa, and Goa increases all of the rest. But by the time you get to some of the North Indian states, the subordinate courts are looking very poor in relation to women. So you can imagine how few there are in the rest of the country. In the Supreme Court, out of 30 judges, there are only 2 women. So that's not even 10%. Then you look at legal aid. Legal aid, you have panel lawyers. On the national average, you have about 18%. Some states have more, some states have less, but it comes to about 18%. Prisons. In prisons, the prison staff are only 12 to 13%. And if you look over the years, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, in some states, those women staff are even going down. Now let's look at the police, and I'm going to talk a lot about the police a little bit later on. Let's look at the police. There is a public promise and an aspiration that there must be 33% women in police. That is the policy level standard. Bihar, for instance, has a policy of 35% reservations for women. But at the national average, women in police are about 9–10%. Tamil Nadu has the highest, about 18%. So you see, there is a vast gap between what the public policy legislators, all these people who come on television and talk about, I am from the BJP and we are going to increase women. I am from the Congress and we have always done everything for women. You kindly see the figures and see within government itself, in the justice sector, how few women there are. Now, where are all these women? We have the numbers, but where are they? Inevitably, they are in the lower rungs. If it's in the police, it's a constabulary. If it's in the prisons, it's among the guards and the very few social workers there are, etc. By the time you get to the officer level, you inevitably come up with not even double digits. So women are few, they are all clustered at the bottom. And so what is being done? Now the next question comes, okay, if that is the problem, we must always go towards the solution. So what is the commitment to making inclusion a reality? If you think that everybody is working very hard to make this policy to come about, actually you'll see that over 5 years, the increase is perhaps 1%, 2%, 2.5%, but not more than that. However, think of the policy this way. Supposing there are 100 vacancies in the police or in the prisons for staff. So if you've got so few women, the natural thing would be to say, okay, the next batch of recruits, we're going to take 100% women. And that will help to make up the numbers will jump. But in fact, what happens is if you've got vacancy of 100 people, they take only 30%, they restrict it to 30% of that 100. So the numbers never go up sufficiently. You see, you have to have a radical solution to bring in more women. But if in your new recruitment, you still privilege 70% men, then you're always going to have that big gap. And before I go on, so how long will it take for these states to fill that gap? I want to show you a little PowerPoint only on one slide. Sarvanan, if you could put that slide up, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, this slide. I don't know if you can see it. You see the longest lines, Jammu and Kashmir, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh. We did a small calculation just for the fun of it. Yeah. Jammu and Kashmir will take something like 3,000 years to fill that. Madhya Pradesh will take 294 years. Chhattisgarh will take 225 years. Now let's look at the short ones. Maharashtra to reach 33% will, or 30%, I can't remember which one, will take 14 years. Let's look at a really good state usually for women. Kerala will take 30 years. Haryana will take 74 years. So ladies and gentlemen, especially the ladies, if you're looking for a job in the police, I hope you have a very, very long life. Thank you, Sarva. Thank you. Just go back now. Could you take off the screen sharing, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Otherwise, I will lose my place. Yeah. So that's something just very interesting to show you the difference between coming on TV and saying anything you like and actually watching the working and the functioning of governments to see how much they are making the effort to make good their promises. Now, people will, so when you look at the way, that the women are being included into one of the most important areas of governance, then you have to ask yourself, is there institutional bias? Now, I really want people to understand, I'm sure that all of you who are college students and all that know much more than me about these things. But when you're looking at governance and you're looking at discrimination and you're looking at exclusion, then kindly look at these words about institutional bias. Institutional bias is that the whole institution itself, first of all, cannot show that it is equal, cannot accommodate itself and change itself to be equal, does not understand its own response and how the response is designed by the lack of a certain type of person in it. So, but in a constitutional democracy like ours, where we have made special provisions like 15.2 or 15 in the Constitution that says that you will try your best to legislate to get out of this traditional disadvantage that women, minorities, Dalits, etc. have had. So then how do you fulfill that promise? Now, whenever I argue these things, people come forward with a lot of excuses. One is that women don't come forward. I'm going to stop myself here and say one thing. While I'm talking about women, you could easily talk this way about Muslims, Dalits, tribal people, transgenders, disabilities. And the thing is that everybody has to fight for this, when in fact it should be part of government policy. Every minister should be standing up and saying, yes, we have to do something about inclusion. Instead, we are in a position of having to battle at every inch for this kind of diversity and inclusion. And that in itself is an example of institutional bias and institutional discrimination. So people will give you a lot of excuses. One is women won't come forward, or Muslims won't come forward, or Dalits won't come forward. Then they'll say, but they don't fit, they don't have the necessary criteria for joining our service. Then they'll say, but they all will want special favors, they want special treatment. Then they'll say, oh, they can't really do the job, you know, we don't like to say it, but women are useless, they don't do the job very well. And even if they stop saying that, they imply it. Then they say, of course, women get pregnant. So let's just take these excuses one by one. First is they don't come forward. Now let's look and see if women really don't come forward. Unemployment today is at a record high. Huge numbers are unemployed. A great many of these people are unemployed and educated, highly educated, skilled, semi-skilled. So there is a huge pool of people looking for jobs. But whenever we look at unemployment, we look at male unemployment. Occasionally you'll find a scholar who says, oh, no, but women are also unemployed. But if you think about the mental image in your mind, it is of a man waiting for a job. It is not for a woman, usually. And the reporting and everything is done like that. So you can't say that women don't come forward. If you give them an opportunity, they will come forward. Now, since vacancies in the justice sector across all these pillars that I talked to you about is around 20% to 60%, of course, there is room for women. So why are you not employing them? Women are available. They will come forward. I'll give you an example which you'll find amusing. There are some 900,000 women or 9 lakh women in the Panchayat Raj. 40% of those women are now sarpanches. If you were to take even 1% and say 1% of these women are smart, capable, 99% of them are rubbish. Even if you said that, which I don't believe, but even if you said that, you would be able to fill parliament 15 times over. Think about it. The exclusion, as I keep on saying, is an example of discrimination and the refusal to give women rights in a practical way. Now, the second thing is they don't fit the criteria, the necessary criteria. That is true. That is true. If your criteria for policing is let us say 6 foot, then you're only going to get a bunch of white men being able to join the police. So you bring it down to 5'8". But if your average, national average of a woman's height is 5'6", then that is the criteria that you have to use. That is the change that you have to bring about in the institution, in the criteria. Women don't have to try to stretch and become taller. You have to change. Your institution has to change. And the fact that you don't change it, that is again institutional bias. Then they say women don't come forward because the professions of police and prisons are perceived as dangerous, macho, militaristic, violent. Now, excuse me, whose fault is that? Should the women have to take the blame for the fact that you have a bad image? Or should you be doing everything to change that? Within the institution, this is precisely why women are needed in that institution, because worldwide, and ma'am, I'm sure that all of you who do women's studies have seen these research studies, show that across the world, inclusion of women and other diversities changes the work atmosphere, work culture, and response to the public of these institutions. They make them more efficient, more humane, and more capable of responding to the community where you have diversity, women as well as other diversities. So my favorite category is that women have to be accommodated. It's too difficult to bring them in. They are not like men. Now, this is also true. A woman is not a man with breasts. A woman is a completely different biological, social, economic creature. She is different in her physical needs, and she doesn't have to apologize for that. And she is different in her social circumstances. So you have to recognize it. You have to make your institution change in order to bring them in. For instance, women do get pregnant. Yes, that is a biological compulsion. They get pregnant. Men do not get pregnant. So you have to give maternity leave. If you want parity and you think it's a favor to give a woman maternity leave, make it, incentivize it for women, for men also. If you want parity, when a couple has a baby, make sure that the man also can get maternity leave so that it doesn't become a disincentive to having a baby, because people want to have babies and they have them right mid-career. So why should a man have all the advantages of it and the woman of all the disadvantages of it? If you recognize that a woman has to breastfeed, has to be there for the first year, then make sure that that is not compromised, because we don't want to create a society of uncaring people. You have to bring empathy into making things like this happen. So, as I've said again and again, the institution has to change. Now, finally, they say that women can't do their jobs. So I got so fed up of listening to this that I said, okay, let's break it down. And I looked at the police and I looked to see what is the work of the police, because police are considered dangerous, terrible job, all frightening, all macho. What shall we look at? Okay, 85% or 90%. Now I haven't studied this like a statistic, but it is my view. What do the police do? On their everyday job, they do traffic regulation, house calls, community liaison, investigation, patrolling, gathering evidence, recording evidence, taking statements, going to court, computerization, technology, communications, driving cars, policing protests and stopping them or dealing with violence is an exceptional piece of work they do from time to time. And even in that, negotiations, which is something that women do very well, should be part of it. And if they should become violent, we have again and again seen that well-trained women and well-trained and well-equipped can do this job as good as any man, especially now where we rely on equipment more than brute strength. So this is also a myth, because if you break down the jobs that the police do, then you will see that they are more akin to what we traditionally believe women can do, rather than what they should be excluded from. Last two things. I took the example of the justice system just as an illustration so that you will see that the inclusion of women into employment is masked by excuses and gravely put forward by graybeards looking very very sincerely at you and arguing, but actually it is prejudice disguised, and it has continued for too long, and it has to be broken. Now, this whole issue of 30%. 30%, why do we call it 30%? We must have 1/3 women. We must have 33% women. Why do we always talk about that? I want to tell you that as I have grown older, I feel that this 30% is being bandied about just as a compromise. It is a negotiation for inclusion. The right demand, the principal demand is parity. 50% or no more than 60% of any gender in any profession, especially state employment. 30% at the moment looks like a figure that we have come up with because men will be able to tolerate it, or power will be able to tolerate it. And I think that we should stop thinking in those terms as if we are pleading or petitioning for something rather than saying that we are being denied our rights. Words do matter. The way that you put things forward empowers you. The way that you argue against prejudice empowers you. You cannot compromise with your equality. Now, we have to go beyond the problems, and the new activists of today, the active citizens like yourselves, have to know the statistics. You have to know the arguments to put forward through engagement before the whole country to bring about change. We have not got the choice of wringing our hands and sitting in one corner and repeating what my generation fought for and your generation is now still arguing about. It's been too long. Each part of the system each part of this problem has to have a specific solution and a specific argument, and it has to be broken down bit by bit by bit. And we want this not because women need justice.
A
But
gentle
because-
reminder, Maja ma'am. A gentle
Sorry?
reminder. There is 5 more minutes left.
I am finished. We need this not because women need justice, but because justice delivery needs women. Otherwise, it is unjust. Thank you.
Thank you so much for such an eye-opening, informative speech. It's been really inspirational. Now, I would like to go and welcome our second speaker, Zakia Soman. Zakia Soman, you are heartily welcome to this panel discussion. And I would like to brief her profile. Zakia Soman believes in and strives for a just, fair, and equitable world. She is the co-founder of Bharatiya Muslim Mahila Andolan, which works for Muslim women's citizenship rights and for gender justice in Islam. She is the founder of Center for Peace Studies, hosted by ActionAid, which is engaged in knowledge activism for peace and justice, religious tolerance, pluralism, and rights for minorities. She is on the India Core Committee of SAPE, South Asian Alliance for Poverty Eradication, that engages on issues of poverty regionally across different South Asian countries. She served on the organizing committee of People's SARC in Kathmandu in 2006 and in Colombo in 2008. She received the Outstanding Women Achievers Award from the National Commission of Women in 2014. She was featured in BBC's 100 Fearless Women, saw Bake Off Andolankari Auratein in November 2015. As petitioner, she owned the legal case wherein the Bombay High Court ordered women to be allowed enter into the Haji Ali Dargah in a landmark ruling in 2016. She was the petitioner in the Triple Talaq matter in the Supreme Court and campaigned extensively for its abolition. In its verdict of 22nd August 2017, the Supreme Court set triple talaq aside. Zakia works rights represents on issues concerning minorities, women rights, human rights, pluralism, diversity, religious tolerance at different deliberations globally and in India. She has authored 2 books and writes regularly on these issues. Zakia led a national research published in 2014, Broken Promises, a study on the socioeconomic status of Indian Muslims 7 years post-Thatcher report. She has co-edited a volume, Peace and Justice in South Asia, which was published in 2010 by Crowling Kindersley India Private Limited, licensees of Pearson's Education in South Asia. In 2009, she educated a publication Issues of Indian Muslims, Some Progressive Writings. She has co-authored a book based on a research, Changing Countries of Gujarati Society, Identity Formation and Communal Violence, which was published by Behavioral Science Center, Ahmedabad, Indian Social Institute, New Delhi, and Caritas, Germany in 2008. She led a national research in 2006, Socioeconomic Conditions of Muslims in India, which was published by ActionAid. She has authored the following books and publications: Zakia Suman and Noorjahan Safia Niaz, Indian Muslim Women's Movement for Gender Justice and Equal Citizenship, Notion Press, Chennai 2020, Zakia Suman and Noorjahan Safia Niaz, No More Talak Talak Talak, Muslim Women Call for a Ban on an Un-Islamic Practice, BMMA, New Delhi 2015, Noorjahan Safia Niaz and Zakia Suman, Seeking Justice Within Family, a National Study on Muslim Women's Review on Reforms in Muslims' Personal Law, BMMA, Mumbai 2015, Zakia Suman and Noorjahan Niaz, Locating Muslim Women in Indian Policy, People on the Margins, Whose Budgets, Whose Rights, UN Women, New Delhi 2014, Zakia Women and Jimmy Dabhi, editors, Peace and Justice in South Asia, Dorling Kindersley India Private Limited, licensees of Pearson's Education in South Asia, Delhi 2010. Zakia Suman and Imran Ali, translators, A Battle for Equity, Mazbat Ki Jung by Ali Anwar, Indian Social Institute, New Delhi 2008. In a period spanning over 30 years, she has taught business communication at the SJVM College of Gujarat University, been an editor in a leading English daily, headed the education program of a global technology company, been whole-time director in a management consulting company, and a director in a voluntary organization. Zakia Suman, you are heartily welcome to this panel discussion on behalf of Bharati Dasan University Department of Women Studies and Human Rights Foundation organization. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Banerjee, and thank you, HRF. And I do not want to repeat what Ms. Daruvala said about person's bio note. So on a lighter note, Ms. Daruvala has very ably kind of, laid down the framework. And I don't know, whatever I'm going to say, whether it's going to live up to the standards that she has set by, giving us a very good idea, very elaborate idea about the condition pertaining to women's rights and women's condition in our society today. And I'll make a few points, and based on my work and based on my experiences as a woman and as a, if you like, as a Muslim woman coming from Gujarat. And then I really look forward to the interaction. I think that's where we can have a greater sharing of insights and, learning from each other. So it's a very important and very vast subject, administering of justice for women. Because it also happens that when we talk about justice for women, or we talk about, say, gender justice and gender equality, it does get focused and narrowed down to legal justice, which is very, very important. But legal justice is part of a much larger kind of a arena, which is social justice and social equality. So as we all know that we are now, we are now a democracy over 7 decades old, and we have given ourselves a very good constitution, which guarantees all of us justice and equality, irrespective of our gender, irrespective of our caste, of our religion, irrespective of what language we speak, which part of the country we come from. So that is the constitutional reality. But even as even as India got independence, and we were trying to give ourselves a very strong kind of a document which would stand by us down the decades and down the years. Even at that time, this was the concern, voiced mainly by Ambedkar and, equally also by Nehru. And Ambedkar's view was very clear that, given the kind of society that we are, given the kind of society, we are with a casteist mindset, with a religiously divided mindset, with a very unjust and discriminatory mindset, whether our citizens, be they from the Dalit background, be they from the women gender background, will they be able to become equal? That was a huge question that was raised by Ambedkar. And 7 decades down also, it remains a hugely relevant question for us today. Because in so many regards, if we look at the constitutional provisions, the constitutional safeguards, even the various articles of constitution, right from 13, 14, even the articles pertaining to non-discrimination, justice, equality for women. So that is on the one hand, but on the other hand, we look at our society and we see that we at every step of our lives, we are facing patriarchal mindsets, we are facing misogynist mindsets, some of which was illustrated very ably by Ms. Daruwala. And particularly when it comes to laws, we are also, a country where politics has a huge role to play. And the political class, the entire political class, irrespective of which particular party they may or may not belong to, is a hugely patriarchal class. It's a class which believes in, control over the rest of the people. It's a class which believes in domination. It's a class which takes decisions and makes laws driven by its own consideration of electoral gains and power politics. So unfortunately, even 70 years down the line, today in our society, women continue to be unequal citizens. And so many laws which are there in the constitution, many of them, may or may not have translated into real life. So that is our situation, that is our reality today. Take a simple example, of the dowry laws, the laws against dowry, and the laws against domestic violence. So, all of us, if we look around in our friends circles around us, most of us unfortunately find that maybe 8 or 9 of the 10 marriages which take place around us, dowry is exchanged. This, despite of the fact that there is a very strong law against dowry. And same can be said about domestic violence law. I don't know, maybe 1 in 1,000 women, a married woman who will say that no, she has not been subjected to domestic violence and she has had it just too smooth and too equal. I think she would be. There are such women but they are very. I'm not even sure whether they are 1% of our society. So that is the kind of reality in our society. It's also that the politics of our country, when it comes to, particularly when it comes to the rights of women and when it comes to the interests of women, politics takes over, and invariably, it is made a matter of individual rights versus group rights. And the kind of, very moralistic society that we are, we even now in today's day and age, we look down upon anybody who comes across as individualistic. when I say we, I'm not referring to this group, but I'm talking about the larger society. So, that's how when women get beaten black and blue, and an NGO volunteer, tries to support her or tries to take her to the police station, the first response she gets from the police itself is, the police is kind of shocked and astounded that this volunteer has brought this woman even to the police station. Because the usual response is that if her husband will not beat her, then who will? Who else will? What is wrong? He is your husband, so he may beat you once in a while. But doesn't he provide for you? Doesn't he give you a home to live in? So, this is the kind of society that we are a part of. And also, Ms. Daruvala referred to the diversity, which is a very, very important and significant feature of our society. So this kind of injustice on account of gender and on account of social inequality also gets heightened when it is a Dalit woman, when it is a poor woman, when it is a woman from minority background, when it is a woman from, from the tribal background, or a woman from Kashmir, say, or the women in the Northeast who are fighting the AFSPA. So we all know, the whole history of what happened to Manorama, what happened to, the whole struggle and the campaign of Iron Sharmila. So these discriminations and injustices get further aggravated and further multiplied based on the location of the woman, whether she's poor, whether she is in a village or in a city. But nevertheless, there are certain kinds of injustices which are constant, which remain, which apply to every woman. So, for instance, the easiest example can be domestic violence. So even the best women with the best kind of education, bringing in good kind of income every month for the family and for herself, still chances are she may be subjected to domestic violence. This is just one example. So it becomes very difficult in our country for women to stand up and fight and demand justice from society and from the state institutions and from the democratic institutions. And in our struggle towards the abolition of triple talaq, we also saw some kind of a whole list of difficulties and challenges which are man-made, which are faced by women when they try to access the law or the legal protection system. It can be family court, it can be lower courts, it can be any forum which is from where she can expect to get justice. So some of the problems that we found are, first and foremost, to expect a woman coming from a poor background, a woman living, say, for instance, in a slum in Bombay. So if she is being unfairly dealt with by her family members, or it can be her husband, it can be in-laws, it can be her maternal family also, it is too much to expect that she will be aware of, the laws which are meant for her protection. So that is the kind of denial of information, denial of education, that we have done to our women in our society. So it is too much to expect that she will be aware that there is a law which can give her protection against dowry or against domestic violence. And later on, I'll come to that, against triple talaq, for instance. So first and foremost, she needs to have this knowledge. Then if she tries to access, any of these laws, then there are a whole set of issues that she faces. Because our legal justice system is very, very slow. It is complex. It is also, if I can say so, tardy. It is also expensive. And it is too much to expect from a woman who is a daily wager, earning anywhere in the vicinity of, say, 80 to 100 rupees a day, to sort of give up her day's work and, to be accessing this kind of a system, at the end of which she doesn't even know whether she'll get justice. So there are so many problems. And we've also kind of faced situations where the women were able to, win the case. But in order to implement the court order, she was really again dependent on so many so many people, right from the clerks of the court to the local police to the leaders in the neighborhood where she was living. So it's really, really unequal and one-sided. So what I want to say is that as part of this 16 days of activism against violence against women and for gender justice and for gender equality, there's a lot of things that we can do together because we have to expect that we'll be able to change the political class, the political parties will be able to change the elected representatives, will be able to sensitize them, and such that they start looking at women and girls as equal citizens and as equal human beings, even before coming to equal citizenship. So for that to happen, there is a lot that each one of us can do individually and collectively, and I'm sure what HRF is organizing this webinar today, it is one such step which is being taken by HRF. But I feel there's a lot we can do at the level of the community, at the level of society, and of course, at the level of how to make the democratic institutions and the government accountable. So that is where we need, see, law alone and legal measures alone, law will help, but law alone will not help. So we have to, legal reform is important, equally important is social reform, equally important is social democracy, where we have to educate our community members. And of course, this burden primarily has to be on, in a democracy, the primary burden rests with the government, because it is a constitutional obligation of the government. They are bound by various articles of the Constitution, where they have to gradually enable the women citizens of this country to become equal citizens. But that will happen only when there's a push from the communities and from society as a whole. And there are a lot of initiatives, lot of activities which can be done on that count, and I'm sure this group is more familiar than anybody on some of those. We have to also look at this factor that the way our country is going today, it is becoming, we are becoming an illiberal democracy. We are becoming a majoritarian democracy. And in an illiberal democracy and a majoritarian democracy, to expect that women's equality and women's rights will be, sort of upheld, it will be rather, laughable to expect this. So we have to connect with the larger social reality. And just let's take a brief look at what is happening today. So today there is a whole, post the judgment of the Supreme Court on 377, there is a whole lot of demand, coming from the LGBTQ community that there should be, same-sex marriages should be legal. And it's long overdue. But what is, our various, if we look around what is happening, what are our various governments busy with? They are today, at least 5 or 6 states today are talking about bringing laws on the bogey of love jihad. They are trying to politicize a marriage between 2 consenting adults, which is a right granted by the Constitution of India, and the various articles of the Constitution which guarantee and protect individual liberty and individual freedom. They are, instead of protecting those, they are talking about bringing about these laws. And on the other hand, there is a huge backlash from the forces of patriarchy against our girls and our women. Everywhere, we are seeing cases of sexual assault, cases of mass rape, which are becoming, I hate to say this, but they are becoming an everyday news. Pick up any newspaper, there will be at least a few, 3 or 4 cases of gang rape. And there'll be additional kind of violence, brutality, atrocities if the girl happens to be from the Dalit community. So this is becoming normal today. So rather than addressing, apart from sexual violence, rather than addressing this overarching misogyny and male domination and patriarchy in our society, our elected representatives today are busy doing the politics of communal hatred and religious divide in the name of upholding women's rights. So the argument is that, if I may say that, the Hindu girls are so stupid. They say that they are not, they are not making the correct decision if they are marrying a man from another community, if it's a Muslim man or a Christian man or a Sikh man or a Parsi man. And they're saying instead these men are, somehow seducing these women from the point with a view of converting them and, increasing their number. This kind of patriarchal nonsense today is being translated into law. So, forget all the good work that has been done for the last several decades by so many feminists and so many women's organizations. Now we are being, we are being faced with this kind of a no choice kind of a situation, where unless, we try and put some sense in the larger politics and we get our elected rulers, howsoever popular they may be. Being elections does not absolve you of your constitutional obligations. So even as you are elected with whatever kind of majority, you are answerable to the constitution, and you are meant to uphold the constitutional obligations. So these are some of the new challenges we are facing today, and in a way, if you look at it, our struggle and our fight got. It was never easy, but it got even tougher, and it even got more challenging. And it calls for greater synergy, greater effort, and greater kind of coordination on our parts. And as far as the law, the whole struggle against, this is my last point, because the entire campaign for abolition of instant triple talaq, which is a practice which was very common in the Muslim community. In our study, we found that out of the 525 women who were divorcee women, out of 5,000 odd women, out of these 525 women, almost 500 women were divorced through these unilateral instant triple talaq method, despite of the fact that this method is not sanctioned by the Quran. The Quranic practice of talaq is very, very modern. It is about arbitration. It is about discussion and mediation. It is about, both sides dialoguing and mutually coming at a decision to part over a period of minimum 90 days. So I would say it's a rather modern kind of a method, which is, spoken about in the religion, but given the stranglehold of patriarchy, this became the commonest method of divorce in our community. And only it's, in beginning 2012, 2013, a lot of women started coming up. They started raising their voice against this patriarchal practice. And we had a lot of hard work to explain to the women and to the whole community that this practice doesn't even, carry the sanction of the Quran. And then, finally the matter reached the Supreme Court, and there was so many petitions, and it was set aside by the Supreme Court. And following which a law was brought by the government, which again led to lot of uproar, lot of disagreements, lot of discussion. But nevertheless, reform in Muslim family law is long overdue in our country, because several Muslim countries all over the world have very well reformed family laws, be it the matter of talaq, be it the matter of polygamy, be it the matter of age of marriage. So we can and the religion also, Islam also encourages us to move with the times, to evolve with the times, and to sort of respond to the need of the day. So it's very, very correct. It is very, very Quranic to demand reform in Muslim personal law. So that's I guess that's an ongoing campaign, which will be undertaken by more and more women to come in future and in the coming years and decades. So yeah, overall, I would say that the work for women's equality and women's rights it's a very, very fulfilling and rewarding work for all of us. But in the present circumstances, it is all the more challenging. And I really hope we all can do something together. Thank you. I'll end here. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much for both the speakers. I'm really happy to listen to both the presentations, very brilliant presentations. I can just sum up both the speakers in a few minutes and open it for discussion. So this administration of justice and women, thanks to HRF for organizing such 16 days activism, and we have to do something. Just holding this, we have to have some more follow-up also. And so starting with the with Maja, where she just as the second speaker told, a very, very brilliant exposition on the kind of situation which is prevailing in the administration of justice. And she was very powerful in certain aspects, which I just highlight and move on to. The first and foremost was about the justice system itself, which is not inclusive, but there is a need to be rendering justice. So there is a need to have proper infrastructure, proper human power, etc., etc. And based on the ranking, she could bring out that to us. And she claimed that the justice service should be equal, like it was there. It is in schools or taluk, and now we are in the extraordinary situation. And talking about the representation, the presence of women in various fields, be it justice system, the judiciary, or the police, is highly disappointing that whatever is desired, at least the 30% could not be reached, and we are far, far behind. And in fact, Goa's influence has been quite high because it is 72, so it does influence others. But there are poor representation in other parts, including Northeast, and the same is true there in High Court. The Supreme Court is very, very the minuscule, and prison also it is just 12%. So all these invariably convey that there is a long way to go to even capture to that is 3%. Though parity wise, we have to have half of them to be there. Unfortunately, because of the kind of historical disadvantage you've had, having, I mean, entering into the field of education itself is a trap for women. And when even in the education system, we are in the higher education system, we could see the professors and HODs level, professors level is very, very minimum, like you have quoted 1 or 2%. Maybe in the 10 years or 15 years down the line, it's likely that more women would be there in the headship positions or dean or any other leadership position because of the presence of more faculty colleagues there in the context of assistant professor or associate professor. So that would be happening there in other parts. We only wish, but in the justice system, I wonder whether this will be because of the kind of the excuses you have already mentioned. And this is true. Teaching is an exception where women still prefer that, or even the society prefers, and the socialization process itself, they see. Even in the school system, if you ask the girls to tell about their choice, they will say it's definitely teacher. But things are now changing. In the gender training, we see girls are also raising their hands to become police or IAS officers, etc. So in one of the studies in our own research in the railways, we could find around 25% of the young leaders are coming up because they are into competitive exams. And you can see in the bank service and this one also, things are changing. We only wish this in the justice system also it will be happening. And we are very, very impressed on the presentation about the kind of excuses that that the society keep or the system keeps us, and how you can overcome. You did point out, like when there is 100% for 100 requirements for positions, it has to be for women, but unfortunately it is not. And what is happening is that you just advertise, and if there are not eligible candidates, you just shift to other. This is not only for women, it is for the other reservation categories also. It is happening here in the education system, where you would be calling for SCA and there is no adequate people applying, then you will just switch to. So this shouldn't be the case, and you have brought out that very well. And in the constitutional democracy, you are supposed to be inclusive, but it is not happening. The diversity is not being properly recognized, be it Muslims or Dalits or and you keep saying that they are not coming forward, they are not necessary, they are the special treatment will be expected, and finally the pregnancy also, and they can't do the job. Yeah, this perception is there, and you can definitely be seeing there on the caste hierarchy that this particular community cannot do this or this particular gender cannot do. And women get pregnancy is of course biological and a social responsibility too. You are supposed to, if the woman doesn't procreate, then you will harass her like anything. So you have already, I mean, you did point out about the sarpanch, how it is very poor in certain contexts. You have to come up, and yesterday we had a discussion on that also, very, very brilliant presentations. And also when it comes to unemployment, it is very much, the pool is there, but whoever is to be fired first is always the woman. And it's very interesting to get that suggestion that the average height of women in the police should be taken to accommodate the needs of women, because average heights of the women would be lower than the men. So that institutional reform you have again and again highlighted, and taking into consideration the kind of the structural inequalities, like you have pointed out, the pregnancy, maternity leave, even the income tax. And I have been hearing from my own, when I used to go to this refresher course where college teachers would be coming, they would be saying that these women are coming and taking up their job and they are grabbing our jobs. So that is the perception. Like in the political participation of parliament, they said, no, you go for additional seats and accommodate women instead of disturbing the existing. So this is what the perception which we need to really work upon, and the patriarchal forces through various social institutions, right from family to the judiciary or state or market, working and putting, as rightly pointed out by Sowe also, that it is very much disturbing kind of thing that is happening. And also you end up with a very, very important, there are other things also really you have to have time for others to discuss, so I'm not going into detail, but you have finally having talked about the excuses and the kind of actual perception to be viewed, those issues to be viewed, you said it is not because women need justice, but because justice delivery need women. So this is the end word. I really appreciate for bringing this piece. You have also told about many other things, but I was this is very much catchy that you have to work towards that, how the system needs women, so that it is not only in justice system, in everywhere, wherever the women, of course there are apprehensions that women who are there also not gender sensitive, but we haven't imparted gender sensitivity to, because we have been only in the socialization process imparting patriarchy and not gender sensitivity. So that this is a need of the hour, and the Department of Women's Studies across the country, there are around 161 centers by UGC supporting, and we are taking up this gender sensitization to go. So with these summary, I also take to Zagia Soman's presentation, which is again brought us the important concerns, I should say, which is existing in the society, where you claim that you are the largest democracy, but at the same time you are not really delivering the justice. And some she pointed out about right from Bedkas to Nehru, and how the society is misogynic and patriarchic based on her own experiences. particularly about the women in the grassroots, be it the slum women in the urban or the rural women in the grassroots women in the rural areas, how unequal the power relations because of the kind of power politics which is existing. And both the speakers did highlight about the political parties, how they are not really, there are class biases and power politics playing. And I'm sure that political parties will always be seeing that some amount of poverty, some amount of illiteracy, some amount of unemployment keep sustaining, so that they will come always with the promises that they will be doing away with all these and then continue to. And corruption is also playing an important role. So their concerns and priorities are different and really not on the kind of the constitutional guarantees to be implemented, though every party come and, as rightly pointed out by Maja, that they come and appear there on the TV and give promises, but they are not really doing. And what is happening, some of the legal provisions, though they are, be it the PWDA, that is the Domestic Violence Protection Act, or any other such dowry, there are on paper, including PCPNDT Act. Why this sex ratio has been on the decline continuously, though you have this law preventing the sex selective abortions standing. And so again, it is patriarchal, whether it is dowry or domestic violence, and domestic violence has been accepted by women themselves, that it is the right of the men to beat them up, and they give reasons in the National Family Health Survey. Results would be definitely. And you did point about the kind of inequalities present and the kind of diversity the prevailing in whether it is Dalit or Kashmir or Northeast or tribals, etc. So there is this injustices on gender and social inequality are the social realities which hasn't been taken into account at all while framing the policies or implementing the laws. And so you are talking about the state always look into how, where the women are located, which section or class or caste or ethnic or whatever the other social divisions in the society, and accordingly you implement the law. And that is what it is being observed, that all injustices should be done away with. And of course, you did talk about the other issues like what is actually needed, since there is a denial of information and lack of awareness to women, particularly in the grassroots, because their concerns are daily get into work and get back to home to make their food security ensured. And that is not so understanding legal systems is very, very distant thing for them. And so all these you pointed out that access to education system is quite expensive, though we have the Lok Dalat and the legal free legal services authority, etc. there, people are not aware of that. And implementation of the court order till court order, she has been very, very what I should say, dependent. And so you also suggested that in the 16 days activism all come together, and these legal measures are very, very distant reaching the grassroots, and there is a need to democratize all these, and HRF institutions and other such organizations should come forward to work. And the final word you brought is that the state on which we are really sustaining is about, on the one hand, the illiberal and majoritarian democracy, where women's rights are not upheld. So this is the final word. I think you have also talked about triple talaq. Of course, we will discuss that in, I mean, people will also come out with whether in a feminist perspective, how will you perceive whether it is going to help the women at all, or it is again going to play a different role. So these are the major concerns and issues that are both the speakers placed to us. And at the end of the discussions, it could emerge that how the patriarchy has been the underlying force in preventing whatever the legal justice system which has been there. And the problem is with the enforcement, and there are a number of areas in which, like, for example, the economic rights or the reproductive rights all these areas, there has been a lot of gap that is very, very difficult to implement. And so on the one hand, we are accountable, we are answerable to the constitution, where everybody should come together and work. And that was the message from both the speakers. So with this summary, I would like to also just open up the discussion. In the beginning, Maya's this presentation, we could understand that the whatever is actually, whether it is 33% or whatever, 33%, what we understood is that it is, well, whenever you have this experiment to be done, basic 33, 1/3 is to be tested. That is the logic. Scientifically, they justify. I don't know whether that will go. So there has been a gap, be it political participation or the judiciary. It's very, very limited. And on the other hand, there is a huge participation of women into higher education. I think I know you are all aware of that. And the gap between higher education, and that is gender gap in higher education, has been very, very close. It has shrunk, hardly a 1% difference. So given this type of, girls and women joining higher education, but hardly the participation in work is only 23%, 24% as of the current statistics. This is really worrisome. And on the one hand, we are talking about the justice system. Here the gap is there, but in the larger context also, it is a paradox that people are joining, the women are joining higher education more than ever, thanks to all the initiatives and also the awareness and the sensitivity and concerns of the parents and the girls joining. But at the same time, the work participation rate has been very, very low. And does it have any influence on here also in the representation of women in the justice system or the other, be it military or army or whatever, the police and other system? So that is what I just wanted to ask this. And as the discussions on, participants will also come out with. And second, to Sagya also, I would like to ask about triple talaq. This there has been concerns from the feminist perspective that this implementation of this will further aggravate the issues with the women. And once the guy is imprisoned and come back, whether they will be able to stay together, what kind of other atrocities and harassment she will be facing, and what will happen in the particular period of time when he is imprisoned, if at all this law is really, the women approaches and use this law and the implementation is done. So these are the concerns. So it will worsen the women's position still further, and may not be really serving the purpose. So this is one concern that it is being on the discussion. So I'd like to ask these to be reflected by the speakers, and open to the participants also to raise their questions.
Hello.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes, very much.
Yes. My name is Tabassum, and I'm a HR professional. Now, I would
It is,
first of all,
it is
yeah,
feeble
hello.
now, not
Yeah,
able to hear.
Is it okay now?
Now, yeah, come closer to the mic.
Yes, now. So first of all, I would like to thank HRF and all the coordinators for a wonderful program. Now, such an eye opener for everybody, because my question is to Maja ma'am. Now, it was really nice to know the statistics of the women in administration. The very, very less amount of women come up, or probably like most of them are not even allowed to come because of the glass ceiling and things like that. Now, my question is, these days the rape cases keeps increasing. Now, like one day we hear about one case, and the next day we hear about 2 to 3 cases. So there's a gradual increase in the cases, and we don't find a solution for it as such. Is it that our laws and regulations do not create a fear among men who have this kind of mentality, and is it allowing them to get into a psychological a subconscious psychology that nothing is going to happen against our favor. So in this case, what can we do to reduce or to even stop all these cases further? So that is my question to Maja ma'am. So yes, thank you.
Thank you. Do you want me to answer one question or you want me to answer? How would you like to do this? Then I'll do it accordingly, whatever you like.
Yes. My question is, what can be the the rules and regulations which is already there but which is not aware, which is not known by others?
No. Maya is asking that it should be answered all. I mean, collect all the questions and then answer. I think that will be better.
Yeah.
Can we take one?
I mean, if you take one or two questions,
Yeah.
and then perhaps.
Yes. So we can get one more question and then Maja will answer and then move on to the other questions. Please. Others, if you have any questions, please. No?
Okay.
Yeah, you just start responding to them.
Maybe other people will then be more forthcoming.
Yes.
On the question of rape, I feel there's good and there's bad. One is that I don't think that rapes have increased as much as the reporting on rape has increased. Now there's a difference, right? I feel that there must have been a great deal of rape before. It's just that we never saw it, but now it gets reported. If it gets reported, that's a good thing. And if you look at the police statistics, you will see some state government recently, I think it was UP, that was crowing about the fact that Rajasthan had more rape cases than UP. First of all, I'm disgusted at the whole conversation. Because imagine taking the pain of somebody and the disgrace that they feel, or not the disgrace that they feel, but the disgraceful fact that there is so much rape, and using it to crow over someone else. But be that as it may, we are living in a very debauched kind of era. You are getting more reported rapes in 1 or 2 or 3 states because they are actually taking the rape and reporting it, registering the crime, and then having to go and find solutions or not. But in other states, and this is the point that I was perhaps made badly, was that no women, I have not seen a study among all of the studies that we do on crime and victimization and feminism, etc., that indicates to me how many women of their own accord, in their own agency, using their own agency without assistance from a family member or from an NGO or from the legal aid, actually go and report something that has happened to them. Rape is an extreme, but even harassment doesn't have to be a gender-related crime. It could be that your pocketbook has been stolen. How many people will go confidently to the police station to report it? I would like to see a study on that because it indicates the lack of justice prevailing in the country. So the one question is about the reported stuff. The second is you're asking me to sort of measure the motivation for rape. That's a sociological question, but certainly one very significant factor is knowing you can get away with it and knowing that the society around you is not going to do much to punish you. It may even congratulate you. So it may be, so there are a lot of sociological factors which I think that criminology should really study. A lot of it is grounded in patriarchy, in the way that we bring up our boys, in the way that we bring up our girls, in the fact that rape has to be, I mean, rape is no doubt a complete abuse of your privacy, of your body, of everything. But why does so much disgrace have to figure in it? I used to always think about this when I was young. First, on the one hand, you're saying it's not my fault. And then you're saying, well, nobody's going to marry you. You better hide your face. You better go away somewhere for a long time. And when you come back, then we'll see, hopefully everybody's forgotten about it. Why is it not disgraceful to have your pocket stolen when it is so disgraceful to be raped? But the disgrace is not on me. So I think women also, and the rest of society, mothers, fathers, everybody, has to change that. But getting back to your question on whether rape has increased, I think I don't have a way of showing you whether it is increased or not, but the fact that it is being reported a great deal more is to be welcomed.
Anybody else? Zaki also, there are 2 speakers, you can.
I think there's a.
Yeah, what are the studies that are urgently needed in the area? There is a question on the chat box. I'll read, I don't know to whom it is addressed, to be addressed. What are the studies that are urgently needed in the area of justice and gender minorities?
Oh, I think Zakia should take
Zakia,
this.
yeah,
Because
please.
She's much more the scholar than I am.
Yeah, so one of the studies which we all have really relied upon heavily has been the Sachar Committee study.
Zakia, please a little louder.
Yeah. So one of the studies on which everybody has relied heavily has been the Sachar Committee, which was constituted by the Prime Minister way back in 2005. So they highlighted, overall condition of the socio-economic and educational condition of the minority, Muslim minority, but they did not have, any point in that TOR on the gender question. So they sort of didn't go into that. But even otherwise, overall, also that study is too old, and also the situation has evolved much more. So I think there has to be a study on the entire question of citizenship and the question of equal citizenship, because we have all seen the way the Citizenship Amendment Act has been brought about. And also, there has been this impending National Register of Citizens, NRC. And some of the indicators, if we go by what has happened in Assam, so, we are looking at a new political kind of a situation arising where so many citizens are going to be rendered, I don't know, homeless or countryless or domicile-less, I don't know what. So, but apart from that, also there needs to be a very comprehensive study on the social condition, on the educational condition, and also because a large percentage of home-based women workers are Muslim women. So what are the kind of conditions in which they work? That whole question of economic justice and the whole question of, linking it further to the question of social security. So those can be some areas. And yeah, so I think, but whatever studies have happened, they have been at the time of Sachar Committee and around that. So not very much after that, really.
Can I join and can I add something to this?
Yeah, please, Maja.
To the lady who asked that, I'm assuming that the lady who asked that is actually studying or is about to embark on some kind of studies. I think the first question to ask yourself is, What do you want to do with this study? I have seen a lot of studies which have kind of regurgitated what we already know. And that is a huge waste of time, waste of your talent, waste of your supervisor's time. And then you go off and become a water seller or whatever it is that you want to do, but you don't keep at it. So I think you have to sit down with your colleagues and your classmates and ask them or work through what is it that I want to change through this study. And that will give you the commitment. The second thing I'd like to say is that we tend to look at large things. I want to change the world I want to change policing. I think that's too large, too great, too big. But a study that looks at something very small within a big institution. For instance, why are there so few studies that look at in a taluka or a small district, how does in fact, in practice, a woman access justice? Whether she goes to the panchayat, it doesn't have to be on rape. It can be on the vegetable seller didn't give me back my money. Where does she go to negotiate her right? How much does she know about it? Localize the study so that the study becomes a prototype for understanding the anatomy of justice in your own locality. I think those are the kinds of things that have not been done. Those are two ideas that I have long had in my mind to encourage other people to do.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, Edwin raised his hand. Please, Edwin.
Yeah.
You can ask the question and also
Good
address
evening.
whom it has to be. Yeah.
Thank you, both of you. That was really very enlightening. And Zakia, the thing that you brought to our notice that many of the crimes against women are really not even acknowledged as crimes. No, that is something that has really troubled us at HRF. And maybe we could work together to really look at different locations where this crime actually happens. And unless it is defined as a crime, we really cannot do the administration of justice. My question to you, Maya, because you've done this study across the country and I think across the Commonwealth, HRF, we analyze the government statistics, crime in India, and only for Tamil Nadu. So ours is a very local one. And even within Tamil Nadu, it is only for crimes against the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. So there we needed to make a distinction between reported crimes and recorded crimes. That is one major distinction that we needed to make. The second one is that the recorded crimes, and this is where I wanted to know about the pattern, shows against women, rape is a very successful crime in the sense that rape is recorded and there are no attempt to rape at all. So that means everyone who actually raped was a successful person. And the next thing that comes is only attempt to dishonor a woman or something like that. So in the recording also, there is very deliberate, an attempt to not recognize the crime. And the same pattern we see when it comes to murder. Murder is there are no attempt to murders. So it's almost like unless the police have to record the crime, they don't record. Is it the pattern that you see across the country, across the Commonwealth? What is your take on that?
I haven't done the study across the Commonwealth, but I have looked at the recording of crime and the registering of crime. In fact, there's a survey online which you may like to look at. And the police themselves have done some studying. I haven't got it at the top of my head right now, to say the stupid burking that they talk about. Either you suppress the crime or you reduce the crime in order to keep the statistics. If the statistics looking halfway decent. If you compare crime across the various countries, especially developing countries and India, you get really laughable solutions, because we are the most law-abiding country. We simply don't have the levels of crime that you have, say, in the US, because we just don't record them. And there is this thing about attempt to murder is usually, you'll find, I may be wrong on this, Edwin, I'm not sure. You will find it where there is public disorder. So you've got some poor protester who's shouting and has a slogan, and you get hold of him and you say attempt to murder. But murder is more hard to hide. But I rather suspect that even that is now suicide, accidental death. I don't know. But all of it boils down to, while we know this, Edwin, we have to go to the reasons why it is happening. And that is a real toxic mix of all the dysfunctions in the criminal justice system. You have really, really, really poor forensics. And if you're looking at localizing your studies to Tamil Nadu, and I strongly recommend that, and I congratulate you for it, take a look at what is the capacity of Tamil Nadu to do forensic work. Whether it is blood, fingerprinting, face recognition, poisons, the whole chain of, what you call it, the chain of evidence, the evidentiary chain, how much it is broken, how much it is not, what is used in court. You see, if it takes 6 or 8 weeks for you to see whether there was semen or there was not semen, then, and it comes back, and your prosecutor says it took 8 weeks, the defense counsel would be a fool not to challenge it. He will challenge it and say, what was the chain of evidence? How long did it take to go from one hand to the other? How did you pack it? What did you do with it? Was it, when it came back, by the time it went to the lab, to the time it was investigated, was there 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 1 week? Who was the person who did this? Was there a doctor in the lab? No, there wasn't. Was there a forensic scientist? No, there wasn't. Okay, throw it out. It has no evidentiary value whatsoever. So the devil is in the detail. Probably there was a rape, but you have no means of curing that. So then you get stupid judgments that say, in my view, and I apologize if there are lots of people who I'm going to offend, is saying that if a woman says there is rape, there is rape, without any corroboration. Today you're saying that for women. Tomorrow you will say that. In fact, you are saying it for people under UAPA or for people under security laws. You are reducing and wiping away the safety and the protections at public for innocence by doing these, what shall I say, knee-jerk things, which then destroy the fabric of protection everywhere, not only in one case. I know why it's done. It's done to save, to give a fighting chance to the victim. I know that. But see the larger destruction. One of the things, if I may suggest, Edwin, I'm a horribly dictatorial person. If I may suggest, take a look at the evidentiary chain in the Benix and Jayaraman, what was it, Jayachandran case, in the Tuticorin case, in the Satankulam case. Because everything for guilt will depend on that, even though it happened in such a clear, clean way that they should never get away with it. But doubt will be cast.
Yeah. Now, yes, Sivakumar. And we also one more, Shamim is waiting on the queue. So Sivakumar, please present your question.
And possibly.
Sivakumar, you are there?
Otherwise, we'll move on
Now
to
we'll move to Shamim. You please raise your question. Shamim, you are there? Shamim Fatima?
Yes, ma'am, very much.
Yes, please.
So, good day, everybody. This is Samreen from Loyola College. So, firstly, I'd like to thank HRF for, creating such a wonderful opportunity and making it available to all of us. And my question is for Zakia, ma'am. Ma'am, how you rightly said that everything starts from the ideologies one believes on. And it would be wrong to say that our country is all about this ideology, which majorly favors only towards a patriarchal society. So, ma'am, could you just, mention few methods by which one can scrap the gender imbalance in a home setup in order to, create a better and a neutral society for everyone?
Yeah, it's a summary. It's a very big question. Everything begins at home. Yes.
Yes.
Perhaps that's why we say the personal is the political, and the personal is never easy, actually. And if you are able to live up to your ideals in your personal life, then the rest of the struggle becomes somewhat easier. At least, that is how my life's journey has been. So, yeah, but it varies from family to family. It varies from person to person. So it is good not to have any preset notions about about the family members and the people around us, because I've also seen some of the most very sensitive kind of practices towards women and girls coming from very unlikely quarters. So even that happens. But that said, it's about taking along your family. It's about taking along your parents, your partner, if you have a partner, your in-laws, everybody around you. And yeah, it's not easy. And it's about the kind of things that we read, the kind of people we meet, the kind of social circle that we have. All of that, it goes into influencing what we get to be. And what we believe in, are we able to assert that or not? But it also, I feel that our constitution has a fine balance between, right to religious freedom on the one hand, and secularism also equally on the other hand. And somehow, maybe it's an overstatement, but in my experience, a lot of the patriarchal practices in our families and in our communities, and this applies irrespective of which religious background a person is from.
Yes, definitely.
Patriarchal practices are sort of justified and validated, of course, falsely, under the pretext of religion. So that can be one concrete area where, because these days, thanks to technology and thanks to the fact that so many girls are now standing up, educating themselves, are becoming aware of their rights, all kinds of knowledge is available, to all of us. So we need to look at things ourselves. We need to read. We need to understand. We need to interpret. And for something as simple as right and wrong.
Yes.
just and unjust, fair and unfair, you don't have to really be a scholar for that, right?
Yeah, thank you.
It's the
Zakia,
principle
for
we
that
have seen
observation.
working, at least in our work, because the women, most of our women members are, from very, 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 poor backgrounds and educationally deprived backgrounds. Most of them are dropouts at the level of 7th standard, 10th standard, like that. But when systematically they are, sort of taken along on this journey of understanding, of interpreting, be it the constitutional principles or be it the Quranic principles. So it invariably leads to a kind of empowerment, kind of enlightenment about my creator being just, something like that. So yeah, that is one of the ways. But
Okay.
like I said, it's a
Dr.
constant struggle.
Thank you, ma'am.
Zakia, yeah, thank you very much. We are really running short of the time. We have hardly a few minutes more. So my request is now to get your concluding remarks. Can I request Maja to make your remarks and then followed by that Zakia for 2-3 minutes, the final remarks.
Thank you. I really don't have that many final remarks. I've said whatever it is, and I'm really grateful and appreciative of your having me here and allowing me time to speak. As we get older, we love to give gyan, you know that.
Thank you.
Just I wanted to make a little distinction or add to what Zakia had just said. Family is one thing, and they can hold all sorts of ideologies, and one has to fight for one's right, and whether one fights by engaging with them or leaving them or confronting them, it is the family. But I don't give that same leeway to a person who's got an official position in any system of governance, any part of public life. You may bring all of your prejudices to bear in your public life, but it is wrong. When I see judgments, when I see throwaway remarks by judges, which do not conform to what is strictly necessary by the Constitution, I frankly think it is absolutely wrong. And they get away with it because there is no accountability. Whether it's a policeman, whether it's a judge, whether it's anybody else. Once you are a public functionary, you either follow the Constitution or you go and become a cobbler, or you go and sell puris or do whatever it is you want to do. But when you are sitting on that chair, you are a constitutional authority.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Maya, for that strong and powerful word that everyone is accountable. Now, may I request Zakia to give that concluding final remarks?
Yeah, so continuing what Ms. Daruvala said, it is very, very important to conscientize, our children right at early age. And in our schooling and in our education, social studies or civics are some of the least important subjects. So, that's the kind of, because later on it becomes very, very important what kind of a person you turn out to be, whether you're a person who is fair and just or a person with a discriminatory mindset. So that becomes very, very important. And I fully agree that there is accountability of any democratic office, that is non-negotiable. And which is the book they'll all go by, and they have to go by the Constitution of India. And Ms. Nadesan, if we have 2 minutes, because I want to respond to the triple talaq thing that you asked about.
Yeah, 2 minutes.
You had, so you had said something about the law and whether it will help women or not. If there's a 2 minute or 3 minute, then I can. Otherwise, we can leave it for another time.
Please continue, Zakia. Please.
2 minutes.
Yeah. So the thing is that that law was brought about after the judgment. Let me reiterate that the purpose is justice for the woman. The purpose is not punishment, or the purpose is not to send the husband to jail. So, but having said that, the way the government went about it, they did not consult many people. And also because of their other policies, this ground was built, the sphere was built that this is like the MP from Hyderabad said it on the floor of the house. He said it in the parliament that this seems like a law designed to send Muslim men to jail. But also we have to see the fact that such is the hold of patriarchy, that when women are suffering all these years, all these decades, they have been suffering alone. That time nobody cares to speak up on their behalf. And when they come out and they start voicing their concerns and it leads to some change, then there are so many people, so many forces which swoop on the situation, on the side of the man, that the man is being wrongly dealt with, rather than just telling the man that don't indulge in wrongdoing. So that is one part of it. But in our experience, this law has come about. It is not at all being implemented on the ground. We have tried, we have struggled very hard, in whatever cases have come to us. And forget jail, we have really struggled to get even the FIR registered. And this has happened from in a metro like Bombay to a rural place in Rajasthan, in Tonk district. And it so happened that we only were successful in 2 cases to get the FIR registered. And in both the instances, the man was out on bail, one in 3 days and one in 2 or 3 more days, by whatever means. So it's not as though, now the Muslim men are being sent to jail, as was the fear. But yeah, the opposition also came from the fact that there was no consultation, but then that's not the fault of the woman. And like I said, so many other laws, in Hindu bigamy, there is a jail term up to 7 years, but it rarely happens that a Hindu man goes to jail for bigamy. And there is criminalization and jail term in so many women affirmative laws, but now there's a debate about, even diluting even in the dowry law. So we have to, there are so many complexities and there are so many fine balances. But what the government does is it's the government's doing. And we also know that most of the laws, when they come, no law when it comes is in an ideal form. So we have to engage and we have to continuously keep on building the pressure for the kind of amendments that we may want in the law. So, but at the same time, to say that because there's a threat of the men being jailed unfairly, because the man goes to jail, it's always unfair. So you cannot, continue denying women, the whole legal instrument, and you cannot continuously, go on denying avenues for legal justice to her. So yeah, that was my little take on that. Over to you, Ms. Nattison.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, we are coming almost to the close of the discussion. In fact, re-socialization is required. We have been talking about gender socialization. So re-socialization has to go through the institutions, social institutions, through which the socialization started. So as Shamim was asking this question to you, that is what we have to, I think, build a different society. So I thank both the speakers for the wonderful deliberation, and we have got a lot of inputs on the kind of issue on the justice system and its functions and the flaws and what to do, how everybody has to come together to really influence to alternative systems where more women will be present and more gender sensitive, and inclusion of the diverse group would also be present to influence the policies, and that would be the real democracy and the real justice. And once again, I take this opportunity to thank HRF for organizing this wonderful series of this 16 days activism. They are really committed to bring people on the right area in which they are working, and we could also get benefited by the sharing of the experiences of the speakers. So thank you very much. Over to HRF now. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Good evening, everyone. This is Narayan once again. First of all, I would like to thank to all the speakers for sharing the graceful words with us in this session. And I would like to say special thanks to Ms. Maya Darwala, ma'am, who's also a HRF advisory committee member. And a special thanks to Zakia, ma'am, who shared the graceful words with us. And I would like to thank moderators, Ms. Shruti, as well as Dr. Manimegalai from Bharathidasan University, who have moderated the session very well. And I'm thankful to all the participants for joining over here and attending the session. Hope the session would be very useful and informative to all of you. And before we close the session, As everyone knows, this campaign session it will continue for another 12 days since this is a 16 days campaign. So we'll have a session on tomorrow. The session on tomorrow is mostly on the session is gender and sexual minorities. The topic of the session is tomorrow. There will be a slight change in the timing. Only for tomorrow, the timing of the session is 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Usually, we'll conduct the session in between 3:30 to 5:30. But only for tomorrow, we have the timing is 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. And tomorrow, the speaker will be Revati A. But she will perform the Tamil play. The name of the Tamil play is Vellai Moli. So we'd like to, on behalf of HRF, I would like to invite all of you for tomorrow's session. And I thank all the sign language interpreters as well as the translators. And the today's session is organized by ourselves HRF, and the co-organizers are Bharatidasan University, Madras School of Social Work, Banyan Academy of Leadership in Mental Health, and the Tata Institute of Social Sciences, as well as Bharatiya Muslim Mahila Andolan. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
One last note for tomorrow's play, there will be translation available from Tamil to English. If anyone who does not understand Tamil wants to also attend. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I particularly want to thank the lady who did the sign language. Thank you so much.
We will
Take care.